name is Christy Birchville, and I'm a Christian devotional author and speaker. And I wanted to give you a devotional for today, looking at some of the women of the Bible. It's really exciting to be able to study them and see what they have to share with us so that we can relate to it in our lives today. We're going to look at Deborah today. We find her story in Judges, chapter 4 and 5. As we look there, we see four important truths. She was a woman with a career. Now, many of us out there, we have our careers, our 9-to-5 jobs that we work to be able to bring home the money that we need to be able to survive in today's life. Deborah was no different. She had a job and she worked at that every single day. She was a judge for the nation of Israel. Now, the first thing we need to understand about her is that she was appointed by God. She was raised up by God to have her position in her career. We find that in Judges chapter 2. When you look a little bit early in there, we see where it says in chapter 2, verse 18, it says, "Whenever the Lord raised up a judge for them, he was with the judge and saved them out of the hands of their enemies as long as the judge lived. For the Lord relented because of their groaning under those who oppressed and afflicted them." The Lord raised up a judge for them. When we look at our job and the things that we do in our career, the first thing that we need to understand is that God has placed us in our career for purpose. He raised us up to be able to be where we are when we are. That's an important key as we go through our day and looking at our careers. The second thing, when we look at Deborah, you see, she recognized and responded to God. She had an unusual circumstance. If you read in Judges chapter 4, we see that typically she would sit under a tree, and people would come to her and ask her questions, and she would explain God's word to them. She would give them great advice, all of those things that were a part of her job. But one day, instead of waiting for people to come to her, she went out and sought out a person. We see this in verse 6, where it says, "She sent for Barak, son of Abinoam, from Kadesh in Naphtali, and said to him, 'The Lord, the God of Israel, commands you, go take with you 10,000 men of Naphtali and Zebulun and lead them up to Mount Tabor.'" She had a specific plan, and it was out of the ordinary. She sought out people to come and to go do something. When we're going through our daily life and our daily career, we can sometimes get caught up in the routine of things. Things continue over and over and over again, and often the day seems to have the same exact thing. But we have to catch the differences. Deborah recognized that she had been given a message and she needed to go. She couldn't just wait for Barak to come to her. She had to go. As we're going through our life today, are we recognizing and responding to those nuances, those little things that come up that we hadn't really expected? Those are the ways God can use us in our career if we will pay attention to those and respond. Third thing, Deborah rallied others to follow God. There was something important and big that had to happen, and Deborah wanted to make sure that the people knew it, and she was able to rally her forces around so that way they could all be a part of that. We see that in Judges chapter 5. She talks about it in verse 7. It says, "The villagers in Israel would not fight. They held back until I, Deborah, arose. Until I arose, a mother in Israel." She knew how important it was for the people to get behind what God had for them. And she was able to convince and to convey that importance to other people. Who in our lives do we need to influence and convince? Who can we rally around the cause that God has put before us? We need to be bringing others along with us each day as we seek to obey Jesus Christ. And finally, she rejoiced. They had a great victory. They obeyed God. They did exactly what God had for them to do, and they saw the victory that God had for them. It was exciting, but she didn't keep that for herself. She rejoiced in God. She gave the glory back to God because she knew that's exactly where it belonged in the first place. So how can we make a difference in our career as we're going through our day-to-day life? First, we have to realize that we have been raised up by God for a specific purpose and a specific time. In a specific career, we're there for a reason. Second, we need to recognize and respond to the opportunities that God puts on our doorstep. We need to make sure that we are following up with those things when we see something unusual about our day. Third, we need to rally others. We need to make sure everybody knows how important it is to be able to follow up on what God has for us. And finally, we need to rejoice in God. He's given us great victory, and we need to make sure that everybody knows He is the one responsible. So that's your devotional for today. Thank you so much, and I hope that blessed you. It's my prayer that you will join me as we seek to live in the world while living out the Word. Thanks. Have a great day.